Retro Road Test, Ford Maverick vs Vauxhall Frontera, 1995 UK Road Test. 2 ladders, 2 transfer boxes, and absolutely no intention of being subtle. Introduction: welcome to the age of corduroy and credibility. By 1995 Britain had fully embraced the idea that one might need to ford a river on the way to Tesco. The countryside fantasy was in full swing: Barber jackets, Labradors with double-barreled names, and four-wheel drive vehicles that spent their entire lives climbing nothing steeper than a curb outside a garden center. The Japanese had already shown us how to do it properly with the Toyota Land Cruiser and Mitsubishi Shogun, while Land Rover was still heroically leaking oil on 2 driveways nationwide. Into this fertile, muddy marketplace stepped 2 very different interpretations of the mid-sized 4x4, the Ford Maverick and the Vauxhall Frontera. One was a polite Anglo-Japanese collaboration that wore a Ford badge but spoke fluent Nissan. The other was a bluff, square-shouldered Isuzu in a Vauxhall Blazer, marketed as rugged, dependable and ideal for people who thought off-road meant parking on wet grass. Both were sold in Britain in 1995, both were body-on-frame, proper four-wheel drive vehicles with low range, and both promised adventure while quietly delivering school runs. But which was the better companion for Britain's green lanes, B roads, and supermarket car parks? We took them both for an extended drive to find out. The contenders: who's who in the mud. Ford Maverick, 1995 UK. The Ford Maverick arrived in the UK wearing a blue oval but hiding a Japanese passport. It was, in essence, a Nissan Terrano 2, lightly reworked to satisfy Ford's desire to have a rugged SUV without the inconvenience of actually developing one. This was not a bad thing. Nissan, after all, knew how to build things that worked. In 1995 UK trim, the Maverick was offered primarily with 2.7-litre turbo diesel, TD27 ET. Around 100 bhp and a healthy slab of torque. 5-speed manual gearbox. Part-time 4-wheel drive with low range. 5-door body style most common in the UK. There was also a petrol option in some markets, but in Britain the diesel was king, especially among farmers, caravan owners, and anyone who measured fuel economy in better than expected for something shaped like a shed. Vauxhall Frontera, 1995 UK. The Frontera had been around a little longer by 1995 and was already a familiar sight on British roads. Based on the Isuzu MU/Rodeo, it was offered in both short wheelbase, sport, and long wheelbase, estate, forms. This test focuses mainly on the long wheelbase Frontera estate, as that was the Maverick's natural rival. UK engine options in 1995 included 2.0-litre petrol, SWB mostly. 2.2-litre petrol. 2.8-litre turbo diesel, Isuzu unit, much loved by people who like engines that run forever. Power outputs were modest, refinement optional, but the Frontera promised toughness, space, and the reassuring feeling that you could reverse a horse trailer into a hedge without noticing. Styling: square is in, aerodynamic is optional. Ford Maverick, sensible shoes and a warm jumper. The Maverick's styling is best described as inoffensive. It doesn't shout, it doesn't whisper, it merely exists. Rounded edges soften what is still a very upright, practical shape. The grille is politely Ford-like, the headlights large and friendly, and the overall effect is of a vehicle that wants to be taken seriously but not stared at. It looks like the sort of car a geography teacher would buy after inheriting some money. Respectable, capable, and unlikely to provoke comment in the pub car park. Alloy wheels were available, though many came on steel rims with hubcaps that would be lost within weeks of ownership. Paint colors were resolutely sensible: dark green, dark blue, silver, and the sort of beige that suggests reliable pension. Vauxhall Frontera, built like a brick, styled like one too. The Frontera, by contrast, is unapologetically square. It looks as though it was drawn with a ruler and approved by someone who mistrusts curves. The front end is bluff, the sides flat, and the rear door looks like it could survive a minor explosion. There is a certain appeal to this. It looks tough, purposeful, and faintly agricultural. In 1995 this was a selling point. The Frontera looked like it could tow a small moon out of orbit, even if in reality it was more likely to tow a twin-axle caravan to Skegness. If the Maverick is a sensible cardigan, the Frontera is a waxed jacket that smells faintly of diesel and wet dog. Interior: muddy boots welcome, but please be careful. Maverick cabin: Japanese sense, Ford badge. Inside the Maverick you are greeted by a dashboard that is logical, durable, and about as exciting as a filing cabinet. Everything is clearly marked, nothing feels flimsy, and the switchgear works with the quiet confidence of something designed by people who hate warranty claims. The seats are comfortable rather than luxurious, with good support and fabric that appears to have been woven from recycled tents. Higher spec versions gained electric windows, central locking, and air conditioning, though all feel like optional extras rather than essential features. Space is generous. Rear passengers have proper legroom, the boot is large and square, and the rear seats fold flat enough to swallow bicycles, dogs, or flat pack furniture with minimal complaint. Noise levels are acceptable for the class. The diesel clatter is present but not intrusive, and wind noise is kept in check by the Maverick's slightly more rounded shape. Frontera interior: function first, refinement later. The Frontera's interior is tougher, simpler, and more obviously designed to be hosed out if necessary. The plastics are hard, the dashboard angular, and the switchgear feels as though it could survive a decade of being operated with gloved hands. The driving position is high and commanding, with excellent visibility forward. Rear visibility is less impressive, particularly with the rear-mounted spare wheel blocking part of your view, but this simply adds to the sense that you are driving something serious. Space is excellent, especially in the long wheelbase version. The boot is vast, the rear seats are adult-friendly, and everything feels designed with practicality rather than comfort in mind. Refinement is not the Frontera's strong suit. Road noise is ever present, the diesel engine makes itself heard at all times, and the overall ambience is more working vehicle than family transport. Some buyers loved this. Others traded them in quickly. Engines and performance: progress is relative. Maverick 2.7 turbo diesel, slow, but determined. On paper, the Maverick's 2.7-liter turbo diesel doesn't look impressive. Around 100 bhp is hardly going to trouble a Mondeo, let alone impress the neighbors. But torque is the key here, and the Maverick has plenty of it where it matters. Pulling away is steady rather than brisk, but once rolling the engine feels strong and relaxed. It will happily cruise at motorway speeds, though overtaking requires planning, commitment, and a willingness to drop a gear or two. The 5-speed manual gearbox is positive and easy to use, and the clutch is light enough for urban driving. Acceleration is best described as adequate, but that was entirely acceptable in 1995 for a vehicle that prioritized towing capacity over traffic light heroics. Frontera 2.8 turbo diesel, agricultural muscle. The Isuzu-sourced 2.8 turbo diesel in the Frontera is a legend in its own lunchtime. It is noisy, gruff, and utterly dependable. Power output is similar to the Maverick, but the delivery is even more old school. Below 2000 rpm it feels lethargic, above that it surges forward with a determined, tractor-like enthusiasm. This is an engine that feels happiest pulling heavy loads or climbing steep inclines, not dashing between lanes on the M25. The gearbox is heavier than the Maverick's, the clutch more demanding, and the whole drivetrain feels as though it was designed with longevity rather than ease in mind. You get the sense that this engine will still be running long after civilization has collapsed. On the road, surprisingly civilized, mostly. Maverick, the softer touch. On tarmac, the Maverick is the more civilized of the two. The suspension is compliant, soaking up bumps and potholes with a degree of finesse that belies its ladder frame construction. Body roll is present, of course, but predictable and manageable. Steering is light, if somewhat vague, and the Maverick feels easier to place on narrow roads. It is not car-like, but it is less truck-like than the Frontera. Motorway cruising is relaxed, with the engine settling into a steady rhythm and the cabin remaining reasonably calm. Long journeys are entirely feasible without feeling as though you have wrestled a bear. Frontera, honest, but hard work. The Frontera feels more utilitarian on the road. The ride is firmer, the steering heavier, and the body movements more pronounced. On a twisty B-road it demands respect and patience, rewarding smooth inputs and punishing enthusiasm. That said, it feels stable and secure at speed, and the sense of robustness is reassuring. You are always aware that you are driving a proper off-roader, not a softened SUV pretending to be one. Motorway driving is noisier, particularly in the diesel, but the Frontera will sit at 70 miles per hour all day if asked. You may not want to, but it will. Off-road, where they earn their keep. This is where both vehicles remind you why they exist. Engaging four-wheel drive is simple in both cases, with a separate lever for low range. Once off the tarmac, both the Maverick and the Frontera feel utterly at home. The Maverick benefits from slightly better suspension articulation and a more forgiving ride, making it easier to maintain traction over uneven ground. It feels controlled, confident, and surprisingly capable. The Frontera, meanwhile, feels indestructible. Its tougher suspension and heavier build inspire confidence when tackling deep ruts, steep inclines, or muddy tracks. It may bounce more, but it never feels fragile. Neither has modern traction aids or electronic helpers. This is old-school off-roading, momentum, judgment, and the occasional prayer. Practicality and ownership. Both vehicles are immensely practical. They tow well, carry plenty, and shrug off abuse. Servicing costs are reasonable, parts availability good, and reliability generally strong. The Maverick benefits from Nissan engineering, meaning fewer surprises and better long-term refinement. The Frontera's Isuzu roots mean mechanical durability but potentially more niggles elsewhere. Fuel economy is similar, mid-20s miles per gallon if driven sensibly, low 20s if not. Verdict: two paths to the same destination. The Ford Maverick is the better all-rounder. More refined, easier to live with, and just as capable off-road, it suits families and long-distance drivers who want rugged ability without sacrificing comfort. The Vauxhall Frontera is the tougher, more honest machine. Less refined but more characterful, it appeals to those who value durability and don't mind a bit of noise and effort. In 1995, both made perfect sense. Today, they represent a time when four-wheel drives were unapologetically functional, blissfully unashamed of their size, and entirely free of touchscreen menus. If you wanted adventure, or at least the appearance of it, Either would do nicely.